Everybody Loves Raymond. The list of actor deaths keeps getting tragically longer. For 9 seasons and 210 episodes, Everybody Loves Raymond became one of the most beloved family sitcoms in American television history, filling living rooms with the sound of bickering in-laws, overbearing mothers, and a sports writer named Ray Barone who never seemed to catch a break. The show ended its run in 2005, but the family it built on screen never really left the public's heart. That affection was on full display in November 2025, when CBS brought the surviving cast back together for a 30-year reunion special, a night meant to celebrate a sitcom that earned 15 Emmys and never lost its warmth. But reunions like this always carry a second, quieter purpose. They become a roll call for the ones who are no longer there to take a bow. And for Everybody Loves Raymond, that roll call is long, and it keeps growing every year. More than 20 of the actors who once populated the Barone family's world have died since the cameras stopped rolling, and some of those losses were far darker and far more painful than a family sitcom's cheerful theme song ever let on. The most devastating of them all remains the death of Sawyer Sweeten. Sawyer was only a year old when Everybody Loves Raymond premiered in 1996, cast alongside his twin brother Sullivan to play the identical Barone sons, Jeffrey and Michael. Their older sister, Madeline Sweeten, played Ally, the family's only daughter, which meant that for 9 seasons, American audiences essentially watched one real family raise itself on screen. Sawyer grew up in front of the cameras, his cheeks changing shape season after season the way only a child actors can, capturing something no adult performance ever could, the sense of time actually passing. When the show ended in 2005, Sawyer stepped away from acting almost entirely, retreating from the industry that had shaped his entire childhood. A decade later, on April 23, 2015, while visiting family in Texas, Sawyer died by suicide. He was 19 years old, just weeks shy of his 20th birthday. His sister Madeline released a statement calling it a devastating family tragedy and asking for privacy, and the news broke something in everyone who had watched him grow up as part of America's favorite fictional family. Patricia Heaton, his television mother, told reporters at the time that Sawyer had been a funny and exceptionally bright young man, gone from them far too soon. At the 2025 reunion, Ray Romano addressed the loss directly, telling the audience that Sawyer was no longer with them and that he was missed, describing him as a bright energy who never got the chance to grow old. Sullivan, sitting beside his surviving siblings, said that none of them had truly expected what happened, but that he tries to hold on to the good moments, many of which happened right there, on that same set. It is a wound the cast has never fully closed, and one that resurfaces every time they gather to celebrate the show that made them a family in the first place. Doris Roberts, who played the show's unforgettable matriarch Marie Barone, was already 71 years old when the series began in 1996, and she turned meddling motherhood into an art form so precise that she won 4 Primetime Emmy Awards for the role. Long before Raymond, she had built a career stretching back to the early 1950s, appearing in St. Elsewhere, Perfect Strangers, and Remington Steele, among dozens of other credits. Marie Barone's sharp tongue and suffocating love for her sons became one of the defining comedic engines of the entire series, and Roberts embodied her so completely that fans often forgot the razor-witted woman on screen was a performance at all. She continued working well into her later years, remaining active in charitable causes and mentoring younger performers whenever she could. Doris Roberts died peacefully in her sleep on April 17, 2016, at her home in Los Angeles at the age of 90. Ray Romano later said she had an energy and a spirit that amazed him, someone who never stopped giving, whether she was on set or working with the causes she cared about. Her passing marked the loss of one of the show's central pillars, a woman who had turned a mother-in-law stereotype into something unforgettable. Peter Boyle, who played the gruff, sarcastic patriarch Frank Barone, had already built one of the more unusual careers in Hollywood by the time he joined the cast in 1996. Before becoming a sitcom father, Boyle had spent time in a monastery in his younger years, training with a religious order before eventually leaving to pursue acting, a chapter of his life that gave his later gravel-voiced comedy an unexpected depth. He carried real cinematic weight behind him, having starred in Young Frankenstein, Taxi Driver, and The Candidate before ever setting foot on the Barone family's television set. As Frank, Boyle turned insults into a love language, mining laughs out of a character who seemed perpetually annoyed by everyone around him, and it worked because there was always a flicker of real affection underneath the grumbling. While filming the show in 1999, Boyle suffered a heart attack on set, a frightening moment for the cast and crew that briefly halted production. but he recovered and returned to the role. Years later, his health declined further as he battled multiple myeloma alongside ongoing heart disease. Peter Boyle died on December 12, 2006, at a hospital in New York City at the age of 71. His death came only a year after the show wrapped, and it hit the rest of the cast hard, marking the first major loss among the show's central family. Georgia Engel joined the cast in 2003 as Pat McDougal, the gentle, quietly eccentric mother of Amy, Robert Barone's love interest. Engel had already secured her place in television history decades earlier as the sweetly naive Georgette on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, a role so beloved that it occasionally overshadowed the range she demonstrated throughout the rest of her career. She brought a similarly soft, otherworldly warmth to Pat, turning a supporting character into one of the show's most quietly memorable presences. Engel never married, and devoted much of her private life to her Christian Science faith, a belief system that generally avoids conventional medical treatment in favor of spiritual healing. As she aged, colleagues and friends reportedly encouraged her to seek medical care for declining health, but she remained committed to her faith's teachings. Georgia Engel died at her home in Princeton, New Jersey, on April 12, 2019, at the age of 70. No official cause of death was ever disclosed, in keeping with her beliefs, leaving fans and even some of her own castmates without a clear answer to what had taken her. She continued acting almost until the very end, having appeared in Hot in Cleveland alongside Betty White, and toured in stage productions like The Drowsy Chaperone, remaining active in the industry she loved for 6 decades. Fred Willard, who played Amy's father Hank McDougal in 13 episodes, was one of the most reliably funny character actors of his generation, a performer whose deadpan absurdity powered everything from Best in Show to Anchorman to Modern Family. He was already 68 years old when he joined the Raymond cast in 2003, but he brought an instantly recognizable comic rhythm that made even his smaller appearances memorable. In 2012, Willard's career took an unexpected hit when he was arrested at a Hollywood adult theater on suspicion of lewd conduct. He was never formally convicted, entering a diversion program that allowed him to avoid prosecution, but the arrest cost him his job narrating the PBS series Market Warriors and generated a wave of tabloid coverage that followed him for years afterward. Despite the scandal, Willard continued working steadily, never losing the affection of the industry or his fellow performers, many of whom continued casting him well into his 80s. Fred Willard died on May 15, 2020, from cardiac arrest at the age of 86, closing out one of the longest and most prolific character actor careers in television comedy. Katherine Helmont played Lois Whalen, Deborah's sophisticated and somewhat distant mother, appearing in 14 episodes beginning in 2003 when she was already 67 years old. Helmont had long been a fixture of American comedy by that point, having earned acclaim for her work on Soap, and as the eccentric Mona on Who's the Boss, a role that made her one of the most recognizable comedic actresses of the 1980s. She brought a similar polish to Lois, adding a layer of icy elegance to the Barone family's already chaotic in-law dynamics. In her later years, Helmont was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, a condition that slowly eroded her memory and eventually forced her away from the industry that had defined her adult life. She stepped back from acting, including stepping away from voicing Lizzie in the Cars franchise as the disease progressed. Katherine Helmont died peacefully at her home in Los Angeles on February 23, 2019, at the age of 89, closing out a career that spanned Broadway, film, and decades of television. Robert Culp brought his own considerable star power to the role of Warren Whalen, Deborah's witty, occasionally overbearing father, appearing in 11 episodes starting in 1996 when he was 66 years old. Culp had already built a major career of his own, most famously starring alongside Bill Cosby in the groundbreaking series I Spy, one of the first American television dramas to feature a black actor in an equal leading role, as well as headlining The Greatest American Hero. His polished delivery and thoughtful screen presence made Warren a believable counterpart to Marie and Frank's louder chaos. Off-screen, Culp's personal life was marked by repeated heartbreak. He married 5 times, with 4 of those marriages ending in divorce, and he spent much of his later career trying to get a passion project off the ground based on the comic strip Terry and the Pirates, a childhood favorite that never made it to the screen the way he hoped. On March 24, 2010, Robert Culp collapsed and died of a heart attack while walking through Runyon Canyon Park in Los Angeles, a place he frequently visited. He was 79 years old. Charles Durning played Father Hubley, the the Barone family's parish priest, appearing across multiple episodes with a quiet gravity that stood out against the show's usual comedic noise. Long before he ever stepped onto the Raymond set, Durning had lived one of the more remarkable lives in Hollywood. Born in 1923, he served in the United States Army during World War II, landing at D-Day, surviving the brutal Battle of the Bulge, and earning the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, and 3 Purple Hearts for his service. He carried the psychological weight of that combat for the rest of his life, later saying that acting became a way to process experiences too dark to speak about directly. After the war, Durning built an enormously respected career in both comedy and drama, appearing in films like Tootsie and Dog Day Afternoon, and he remained a dedicated advocate for veterans' causes for decades. 2 of his marriages ended in divorce over the years, but he never stopped working, bringing the same quiet authority to Father Hubley that had defined his most acclaimed dramatic roles. Charles Durning died on December 24, 2012, Christmas Eve, at his home in Manhattan, at the age of 89, and was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery among fellow servicemen. Beyond these more prominent names, the list of Everybody Loves Raymond performers who have passed away extends much further into the show's rich bench of recurring and one-episode characters, a reminder of just how large the show's world truly was. Anna Berger, who played Rita Stipe, the wife of neighbor Harry Stipe, appeared in 2 episodes and died in 2014 at the age of 91. Her on-screen husband was portrayed by David Byrd, a familiar nuisance to Frank Barone throughout the series, who died of cancer in 2001. Joseph V. Perry originated the role of Nemo, the beloved pizzeria owner, whose scenes became an unlikely fan favorite. Perry died in 2000 at 69 from complications related to diabetes, and remarkably, one of his appearances aired after his death. Robert Ruth stepped into the role of Nemo for 2 episodes following Perry's passing, continuing the character before Ruth himself died in 2018 at 82 from complications of pneumonia. Phil Leeds, who played Ray and Robert's great-uncle Mel in the show's very first season, died in 1998 at 82, also from pneumonia. Gene Gradick, a real-life Pope John Paul II impersonator who parlayed that uncanny resemblance into a memorable one-episode appearance as the Pope himself, died in 2010 at 84 from cancer. The list continues with performers whose screen time was brief, but whose presence rounded out the Barone family's sprawling, extended universe. Argentina Brunetti, who played the elderly Zia Serena in a memorable second-season episode, died in 2005 at the remarkable age of 98. Jean Stapleton, already a television legend for her role as Edith Bunker on All in the Family, appeared as Marie's sister Alda, whose visits reliably sparked fresh family conflict. Stapleton died in 2013 at 90. Bobby Norman, who played Thelma, a woman Marie befriends on a cruise ship in a 1999 episode, died in 2006 at 69. Len Lesser, familiar to many audiences from his recurring role as Uncle Leo on Seinfeld, appeared on Raymond as Garvin, a friend of Frank's, and died in 2011 at 88 from pneumonia related to cancer. Max Rosenthal, who played one of Frank's lodge friends and happened to be the real-life father of series creator Phil Rosenthal, died in 2021 at 95. Patience Cleveland, who appeared in the show's very first season in the episode The Dog, died from cancer in 2004 at 73. Pearl Shear, who appeared as Emma in a Season 1 episode, died in 2009 at 91 from age-related complications. Peggy Doyle, who took on a small role as an elderly woman in a third-season episode, died in 2006 at 86. And Jean Sincere, who played one of the lively widows in the show's cruise ship storyline, died in 2013 at 83. Taken together, the number stands at 23 cast and character performers who have died since Everybody Loves Raymond went off the air 2 decades ago, a staggering figure for a show that, on the surface, was built entirely around comfort and comedy. Some of those losses came from the natural passage of time, actors who lived long, full lives before finally taking their final bow, well into their 80s and 90s. Others were far more sudden, a heart attack on a walking trail, a collapse after decades of quiet heartbreak. And one, the loss of Sawyer Sweeten, remains a wound that the surviving cast still carries with them every time they gather, a reminder that even the most beloved television families are made up of real people carrying real struggles far from the studio lights. What makes the story of Everybody Loves Raymond's losses so affecting isn't just the number itself, but the way each name represents someone who, however briefly, made millions of strangers laugh inside the walls of a fictional Long Island home. Frank's insults, Marie's guilt trips, Pat's gentle strangeness, Nemo's pizza counter cameo, a widow on a cruise ship who appeared for only a few minutes of screen time. Every one of them became part of the texture of a show that people still return to decades later, whether through reruns or the recent 30-year reunion that brought the surviving family back together one more time. When Ray Romano stood in front of that reunion audience in November 2025 and spoke Sawyer's name, he wasn't just remembering a former co-star. He was acknowledging something every long-running show eventually has to face, that the family built on a soundstage is still, in the end, a family, complete with all the love and all the loss that word implies. Which of these stories moved you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more looks behind the shows that raised us all.